Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Our show today is A Woman's Prerogative Part 2. Today's topic is a very delvingly interesting one, and I can share with you that we had an absolutely amazing exploration in A Woman's Prerogative Part 1 earlier tonight, and I'm looking forward to exploring this topic Part 2 with our wonderful panelist. So tonight's topic is the art of authenticity, honest conversations in difficult times. And here to explore this topic with me, we have a wonderful panelist. I'm Caroline HEWARD. I'm absolutely thrilled and honoured to be representing Dr. Jacqueline as your host for USA Global TV and Radio's flagship show. I'm a TV presenter on the channel, and I'm also the resident therapist for USA Global TV and Radio. A very warm welcome to our loyal viewers and our friends over on our other friendly channels. That is LinkedIn, X, YouTube, Facebook. And a very warm welcome to all of our viewers that are here on the live or on the replay. So now it's time to introduce our wonderful full-time panelist. She's all the way from Australia. Her name is MARISKA. She is Coach Extraordinaire. She is an Optimist and an ICF PCC credentialed coach. I believe that's the top of the toppest qualifications that you can get for a coach. I'm always having fun with Mariska in terms of our exploration in all of our topics, and I know that I'm going to enjoy tonight's topic too. So let's bring out MARISKA from Australia. Hello,
Caroline. And hello to all our viewers and listeners.
Thank you, Mariska. So please, Mariska, for people, especially if they're here for the first time, please say a little bit about what you do and who your ideal client is.
So I help out in the leadership space, and I partner with leaders to bring a little bit more humanness into their space. Now, whether you are a new leader stepping into leadership from a specialization such as engineering or even in the medical professions, or you are already an established leader and you are moving up within your career, that's where I help. Because, well, we have a tendency to go to university, train, learn all these wonderful things, and nobody ever really tells us how to be with humans and work with humans so we can all get the best out of each other in the process. And as a leader, that is exactly what you are supposed to be doing. So that's what we work on together. And you can, of course, reach me via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com, or alternatively also on LinkedIn. And that is, well, feels like more than enough about me. Caroline, back to you.
Thank you, Mariska. And I always love your email address. So for me, I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. I'm Caroline HEWARD, and I'm also, as I said earlier, the resident therapist for this channel. I help people bust their stress. How do I do that? I work with root cause therapy and chakra psychology, and how the mind and body are connected and what happens to the person physically, emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally when there's an imbalance. And the imbalance is the symptom. It's whatever the person is complaining about, whether it's physical ache and pain, whether they are emotionally upset about things, whether they're suffering sadness, loneliness, heartache, or if they are complaining about a relationship or a situation. This is how it's showing up in their lives. Many people walk around and say, I'm not stressed, and that is how it's showing up. If they're saying they're not sleeping, or they're complaining about a relationship or a situation, this is the way the stress is manifesting in their lives. And I identify the blueprint. I look at the blueprint of where the root cause originally occurred and move through a very simple process to obliterate the root cause so they return back to a place of inner peace, calm, and the symptom dissolves, goes away. I also do lunch and learn talks for corporates, educational talks with a Q&A online and offline at their offices. And I also work online with clients from all over the world. So let's get into our juicy topic, Mariska. The art of authenticity, honest conversations in difficult times. You were excited when I shared the topic with you. What was it that came up for you when you heard the topic? What was it that you became excited about?
Well, first of all, this is something that comes up quite often within my space with leaders. Having to have sometimes conversations in difficult times, or just difficult conversations in general. And there is a art to it. There's definitely a way of having these conversations. And a lot of the times what I've been finding is we have a tendency to want to have this conversation, understand that we need to have this conversation, get really frustrated for whatever the reason is, because we need to have the conversation. And then that frustration or that emotion comes with us into the conversation. Not always the best approach, because then our words also, very important, has a tendency to carry the emotion to the other person. So the conversation has a tendency to be not as productive as we can possibly make it, and feelings get hurt and people get upset. And instead of having an honest conversation, we end up having a fight or argument of sorts, which I don't know about you guys. I'm not a fan of fighting. I do enjoy a vigorous conversation. I do enjoy looking at different points of view. Fighting, not my thing. How about you, Caroline?
Thank you, Mariska. Yes, it does tend to bring up conflict when you're having an honest conversation. Conflict that might be your own inner conflict, and it might be conflict in the situation for the other person, not wanting to go into that honest conversation and just wanting to get something practical done. And I mentioned in part one, and I feel it's relevant to mention here that we are human. And it is important to recognize that humans have feelings. And if we are in difficult times, and if we are in very estranged times personally, it's not always easy to have that conversation without feelings or emotions coming up, and without the putting that conversation into a place of an emotional conversation. And at the same time, it is important to recognize that we are human. And where do we not share? What don't we share? So much of, certainly I live in England, and the British culture is, the British stuff upper lip. So we kind of carry on regardless. And we don't tend to, especially within our environment of work, we don't tend to feel that it's appropriate to share our feelings and emotions. So we may be interacting or in a place of difficulty personally, and that affects our behavior, our work, our conversation, our showing up. It has an impact because there's still something going on underneath. And, I wanted to know what your thoughts were in terms of, yes, I agree with you, not to move in and bulldoze in into the emotional, to start off as, sort of looking at both sides of it and being practical. But sometimes, say, for instance, if there's been a death in the family, it's very difficult if you're underperforming or there's a difficult situation that arises in a work situation that has to be addressed, to not be emotional if you've had a recent bereavement and things, you're falling off the wayside in terms of productivity. And yet, and at the same time, it's like that difficult conversation for both parties. And I feel that the humanness, to bring that humanness into the conversation, that it's relevant, and at the same time for the manager to step into a place of understanding, awareness, compassion, so that it's couched in a different way, apart from just looking at the practicals. What are your thoughts about that?
Caroline, what's coming up for me is literally bringing that humanness into our space. And I mean, as you mentioned, we are all human. We will at some point go through something that just upends the apple cart for us in some way, shape, or form. And interestingly enough, training that one of my friends were doing is around transitions. And they found that most people go through some form of transition every round about 18 months. And you don't complete the transition for about 2 to 3 years. Now, you can see how that can add up, right? And if you have enough of them adding up, they become a little bit of a storm, per se. And I don't know about you, but storms typically has a tendency to make a whole bunch of things go all wacky. And if we are in the middle of that storm and we don't tell the people around us, hey, I need help, I need assistance. One, you won't get it because you didn't open your mouth to say something. They don't know what the hell's going on inside of you. So sorry, we have noses. We are not dogs. We cannot smell that you have something that's upsetting you. And the second thing is, there is most probably going to be a whole bunch of stuff that gets added onto you that's unnecessary. So that's absolutely the be human with that other person. We all go through stuff. And if the other person knows about it, they can help you out. In the work environment, say, for instance, I come to my leader and I say, hey, boss, I have da-da-da-da going on in my life. And at the moment, I'm at capacity. Mentally, I'm at capacity. I can't take more in my work environment as well. What can we do? If I approach my leader that way, the likelihood of us figuring something out is way, way better than me trying to keep on doing what I'm doing and then starting to underperform and then them wanting to sink me on some other program because I'm not performing the way that I'm supposed to and everybody else getting upset and just the whole thing blowing up. And then all of a sudden I go, yeah, but all of these things are happening. Well, if you said something earlier, we could have helped out, buddy. But if you leave it, it's really difficult to help out. And I have found that most people want to help. I'm not saying all, but most.
Thank you, Mariska. I was nodding, as you can see, throughout your conversation. We also had a viewer, one of our viewers, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the name. She said compassion. And yes, that is a key ingredient. Not only compassion from, if it's a work situation, the manager's compassion, but also self-compassion. Because self-compassion, when you give that compassion to yourself, that will then elicit other people to feel that compassion. I frequently, when I go out shopping or to do something, and I have a conversation with somebody, and I'm just like sort of sharing something, I usually get, and it's kind of weird because I'm feeling really sort of that I'm reaching and touching the hearts of people, because I'm getting feedback. They start off with saying, "Oh, bless you," and then they carry on, and I'll say something else and they go, "Oh, bless you," and it's just so lovely because I feel that I'm being met at the place of my heart, because I'm getting the "oh, bless you" before they actually say what they want to say. And that makes me feel very warm, and it can be just like sort of if I've gone to a market area and picked up some, sort of different bits of fruit, and then I've said, "Oh, have you got such and such? I've been looking for it." And they go, "Oh, bless you, it's just over here." And it's just really lovely, because I feel that the responses from other people, when you meet somebody at the place they're at, this is where I feel that authentic conversations can happen. If you're meeting somebody at when they're in a different place and you're in a different place, this is where I feel that conflict arises. Mm-hmm. If you just want to get something over and done, and yet there is an emotional trauma with the other person, especially within a working environment or in a team environment, it's then very difficult to get the job done, because the team member wants to do well, wants to show up and do everything, and yet there is that inner conflict, the inner trauma. What are your thoughts about what I've just shared?
I so agree with, and as you might have noticed, the nodding the head, I so agree with how we step into those conversations, making an impact, and the energy that we bring to them, and being able to be on that same level makes such a big difference. And I know that sometimes in the work environment that can be difficult. We sometimes get so focused on the task that needs doing, or the pressure that we are feeling from whoever that wants whatever completed at a certain time period, whatever the thing might be, that we forget that other people has the same strains, and they might have different or more strains than we do, depending on what else is happening within their life. So almost having that extra feelers out. If we think about a cat's whiskers, right? They measure with their whiskers whether their body will be able to fit through wherever they want to go through. Now, if we use our own emotional whiskers, so to speak, to figure out whether this is, at this very moment, a good conversation to have with this person, or potentially, if we really need to have that conversation with this person, how might we set it up so that we are both successful within that space? And Caroline, one thing that you mentioned was the team members want to do well. I think if we as human beings, in general, go out to other human beings and go, you know what, they want to do well in this world. And I want to make sure that I can set myself and this other human being up for success, however they define success and however I define success. And have the conversation from that place. These honest conversations become a lot easier because we already come in with our heart. We already come in with good intentions and a willingness to want to resolve the thing that is problematic, as opposing to want to bring our own point across or be right or whatever the thing is that we typically want to do. That ends up in a little bit of a not so nice conversation. What are your thoughts on that, Caroline?
Thank you, Mariska. Well, I'm going to share my thoughts in a moment because we're just about to go over to a short commercial break. But please do come back and join us for A Woman's Prerogative Part 2, where we will continue to explore the art of authenticity, honest conversations in difficult times. Thank you, Mariska. Please come back and I will see you in A Woman's Prerogative Part 2 after our short commercial.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com.
Hello and welcome back to A Woman's Prerogative Part 2, where we are exploring the topic, the art of authenticity, honest conversations in difficult times. And our wonderful full-time panelist, Mariska Dupree, all the way from Australia, has posed an interesting question just before our break. And I'm here now to answer that interesting question. My thoughts are vulnerability and emotional intelligence go hand in hand. And vulnerability on both sides, both the management as well as the team member, because it is not easy for the team member to express their vulnerability as well as the manager. And so it is about meeting in the same place and a meeting of hearts as well as minds. Yes, the job still needs to get done, but a meeting of the heart as well as getting the task done makes the task much easier, much more palatable. And to judge how much emotional intelligence is needed or time for the team member or indeed for the manager who has to allocate time to have that difficult conversation. So I feel that it's about managing the emotional intelligence, not only on the team member side, but also the management. So both parties come together with a reasonably high level of emotional intelligence, but the person who's going through difficult challenges may not be able to contain that high level of emotional intelligence without maybe becoming emotional. And I feel that that then leads to a place where compassion is something that I would suggest or invite managers, team members and supervisors to tap into, to be open to hear what the person is experiencing and what they're going through. So Mariska, thank you very much for your share on that. And I do want to bring up the fact of vulnerability, because I've been watching, I just watched the first part of a documentary expose drama thing on Sky, on Netflix. I think it's Netflix. No, it's on Sky TV. And it's about Boyzone boy band. Have you heard of Boyzone?
Way back when, yes.
Yeah. Well, this is like an expose after 30 years after the fact, and one of the team of the band, one of the boy band's team is Stephen Gately, and he died at age 33 in 2009. Now, at that time when they came out, there was a huge deal. It was a boy band. It was about sex appeal. It was about having girls screaming at you and crying to want to be with you, want to date you. And all the TV interviews were asking about opportunities. They had every opportunity asked, who are you dating? What kind of girls do you fancy? And Stephen Gately was always very candid with his responses. And he was conflicted internally. And in October 99, he actually came out and said in broad, and it was a broad story in one of our UK tabloids called The Sun. I don't know whether it reaches your regions, but in The Sun, which is a tabloid newspaper, he came out as gay. And that was in an article on the 16th of June, 1999. Now, one of the things that I want to say about that was that he was conflicted internally because he was in a boy band, very successful boy band at the time, and people adored him. He had fans crying, raging, screaming at him, wanting to date him, wanting to, so this was a huge deal for him to be open and to be okay to be open in his conversation about the fact that he was gay. And I felt that conflict when I was watching this documentary last night. I felt that inner conflict of this beautiful young boy who had all these adoring fans screaming at him, wanting to date him. And he was very candid about the fact that he was never seen dating or having girlfriends, and yet he was gay. And this is like that honest conversation. He was so conflicted, he couldn't have the conversation, so he didn't say anything, and he suffered. And this is the point that I want to bring up, that if we're not feeling comfortable or safe to feel that we can say what's truly going on for us and what's true for us, then that becomes an inner conflict and an inner struggle, which prevents us from living our true lives. What are your thoughts about? Have you any thoughts or perspective in terms of what I've just shared, Mariska?
Caroline, psychological safety is definitely number one. If we don't feel safe, it makes it so difficult for us to voice anything, especially something that we think will have a reaction from others. And in this specific case that you are bringing up, I can just imagine how torturous it would have been internally for him, knowing that everybody has a specific picture of him, and he knows that that's not his picture. I have not felt it myself, but I can imagine how it feels. And I think it is really devastating. So being able to provide a space where someone else, whether it be a family member, whether it be a friend, whether it be a colleague, feels safe enough to share whatever it is, even if it's a small thing, that they need to voice. And we need to feel safe. If we don't feel safe, as you mentioned, Caroline, if we won't be vulnerable. We won't, because it feels like we are bearing our bellies and anybody can take a knife to it, right? We won't say anything if we don't feel safe. So in the work environment, definitely something, there's loads of different techniques to invite it into your space. And always remember, we cannot make anybody feel safe. It is not ours to make them feel safe. We can only invite it. And they will feel that it's an invitation when we do not judge and we listen and we do all the wonderful things that Dr. Jacqueline helps us with in the listening mentor space. So being able to bring those skill sets to the table is really, really helpful to encourage that vulnerability. And of course, if we take the first step into that vulnerability space, it makes it so much easier for the other person to also join us. Whereas if we have our walls up, the likelihood is, well, they'll keep these up too.
You know, that's a really interesting perspective, Mariska, because whatever we're being will then spill out. And so if we are apprehensive, that will create an apprehension in the other person, whether you're the manager or the team member. If we are in conflict internally on either party, there will be that conflict coming out into the conversation. So whatever is pushed down, it presents itself within the situation in both parties. Certainly, I've avoided conversations in the past because they've been difficult conversations. I'm one of those people that avoid conflict, and yet conflict comes to find you because whatever you resist persists. So it's important when you are noticing, become aware that you are resisting that conflict situation, because if you are resisting it, it will actually become tenfold. It will almost like sort of be ringing out and drumming at you to deal with. And my perspective on that is to ensure that there is somewhere that somebody says that that the conversation has 100% confidentiality and discretion. I do that in all of my sessions with clients. But even if you're speaking to a friend, for instance, that I think that to say it, even though that might be the way that you work, to say, please treat this in absolute confidentiality and discretion. I feel that that's an important word, that's an important phrase to use. So how does vulnerability help or hinder the conversation?
Well, I think we started to touch on that in the sense of if we have barriers up for whatever reason, the other person will automatically have a tendency to have their barriers up too, which means if we cannot be vulnerable, they will struggle to be vulnerable. We're literally not inviting vulnerability into our space when we're having the conversation. Whereas if we go and look at it the other way around, if we invite vulnerability and we are open to being vulnerable and saying it. So saying it and showing it. Remember, it's one thing to say something and not show it. We need to really mean it. We need to show it to them and be concerned and be compassionate. And show that we are concerned and compassionate about our own vulnerabilities too. So being able to have those conversations, we cannot have a vulnerability conversation or a vulnerable conversation if we don't want to open up. It is going to make it really, really difficult for the other person then to open up. It, in all likelihood, won't happen. So making sure that we can create that space where it is safe. And if we feel that we can't create that space, then maybe we need to give that task to somebody else, right? If I have a friend and they come to me and they say, hey, I need you to treat this in confidence, and I know for a fact that for whatever reason, I'm a blabbermouth and I can't do that, then rather decline. Don't just say, oh yeah, tell me the big juicy secret because I want to go and spread it all over the place. You might do it once. That friend will never trust you again. And they will never be vulnerable with you again either. So making sure that we understand that. And Caroline, as you mentioned, within all my sessions as well, everything is confidential. So there is whatever it is that we discuss, it is between me and the other person that I'm working with. It has nothing to do with their team. It has nothing to do with the organization. It is between the two of us because we need to figure out how they want to handle the situation and what would be best. So understanding these things are really important when we work with other human beings. And then I think the other thing that I think about is that part about phrasing. Caroline, how often have you found that using just a different word might make such a big difference into how inviting it feels for someone else to join the conversation or not?
Yes, choosing your words wisely, and also tonality. Because tonality is so important, even if it's just written. That was something I was going to bring up. Is it best to write these things, or is it best to have, because, you know, in our current times, we're having conversations in written format much of the time. And I feel that can be very challenging, because you can pick up tone by words, and sometimes it might sound flat and it might not come across when it's written in the way that it was meant to come across. And my other question, and we are coming towards the end of our show, believe it or not, and there is so much more to unearth here. I wonder whether being too honest or oversharing, could that backfire? Certainly it can be in both, in a personal setting or in a professional setting. My feeling is that sometimes when you are just at that breaking point, it might be just that one thing that pushes you over the edge to move into a space of it being overshared, or that it just all spills out. What are your thoughts about oversharing and being too honest?
Caroline, I think there is a very, very fine line, and this goes to communication practice in general. When I think about communication, it is not about what leaves my mouth. It is more about what actually is received at the other person's ear and how they understand it. Because we might have the best of intentions with sharing all these various details, and the person that we are sharing us with, right, might really not want all the details. It is also very appropriate to think about, okay, what sort of situation is this? Does my employer really need to know all my medical histories and the details in it? That's probably not, right? Can I tell that to my friends? Go nuts. So making sure that we also look at the situation, the person that we are talking to, keeping all these things in mind, and then understanding when I'm thinking about being honest, for me, it's calling a spade a spade. And some people cannot take calling a spade a spade. They like beating around bushes. Now, understanding whether this person likes spades being called spades, or whether they like beating around a bush, right? So that we know how to approach them. And then the other thing is understanding that when we call a spade, we can do this gently, or we can do this harshly. The words then that we use and tonality, as you mentioned, Caroline, becomes extremely important. Because if we load it with any emotion, or it can potentially be loaded with emotion by the other person, we need to tread carefully. So I know that that's a lot. Thoughts?
Thank you, Mariska. And we are absolutely right at the top of our time, and extraordinary shares. Thank you so much. This has been such an enlightening and exploring conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Mariska, before we go, please do share with our viewers very quickly what the best way to reach you is.
So you can reach me via my email, which you will see at the bottom. It's mariska@journey2discover.com, or alternatively, you can also find me on LinkedIn, where you will find me under Mariska D. They dropped the rest of my surname for some odd reason. And I will be in contact either way. So I check both of those quite regularly. And that, of course, is for any aspiring leaders moving from the specialization into leadership, or if you are in leadership already and you are moving up within your career, you are more than welcome to contact me. How about you, Caroline?
Thank you, Mariska. Always a pleasure. So you can reach me on No More Stress at live.co.uk, or call me if you're international +44, if you're local 07523 120 189. And I look forward to busting your stress and helping you to bust your stress. And you can always follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook, which is my two preferred platforms on social media. I've had a really, really wonderful show. It's been a wonderful exploration, Mariska. Always an interesting exploration. We could go on and have a part 3. We have been exploring the art of authenticity, honest conversations in difficult times. Thank you, Mariska. Always an interesting exploration with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week on A Woman's Prerogative Part 1 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. GMT time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm actually going to take a break from A Woman's Prerogative Part 2, and we have our wonderful, amazing Dr. Jacqueline taking over A Woman's Prerogative Part 2, hosting the show for next week. So please do join our VIP exclusive community and become an exclusive VIP community member, having first access to our newest videos, photographs and insights on the royal family, which are live streamed on USA Global TV and Radio and YouTube. That's it for us. Bye-bye for now, and I look forward to seeing you next week at 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And we're wishing you all a wonderful week, whether you're watching on the live or the replay. Bye-bye for now.
In a world full of noise, misunderstandings and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations. Have you ever felt unheard? Like your words float into a void, leaving you invisible and disconnected? How about feeling judged, when assumptions overshadow your truth, leaving you misunderstood and defensive? And then there's that moment when someone offers solutions you never asked for, dismissing your feelings and leaving you more frustrated than before. It doesn't have to be this way. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the listening mentor, understands. She's here to help you reclaim your voice, build stronger connections, and create meaningful conversations that inspire understanding and mutual respect. Through her groundbreaking books, online and in-person courses, and interactive workshops, you'll learn how to navigate life's most challenging interactions. Discover the power of elevated listening and transform how you communicate. Master setting boundaries and asking permission to protect your peace. Learn to recognize and release judgment, fostering empathy and true connection. Dr. Kerbeck also offers personalized coaching, one-on-one or group sessions designed to fit your unique needs. Whether in person or virtually on StreamYard, her guidance will empower you to thrive. You don't have to struggle alone. The path to deeper connections and better relationships start here. Visit drjacqueline.com or usaglobaltv.com. Join a global community of empowered listeners and transform your life, one meaningful conversation at a time. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor. Start your journey today. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives, one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.